The genesis of the medieval university between the late 11th and early 13th centuries represents one of the most significant institutional innovations of the High Middle Ages. These centers of learning, growing out of earlier cathedral and monastic schools, formed self-governing, legally recognized corporations known as _universitates magistrorum et scholarium _guilds of masters and students. The experience of study was rigidly structured, intellectually demanding, and often harsh, defined by scholastic methods, distinct legal privileges, and a society that strictly limited access based on gender and, to a lesser extent, financial means. The foundation of the university rested upon its status as a corporate body, which provided the legal and organizational structure for all academic life. The granting of corporate status, whether from papal bulls, imperial decrees, or royal charters, was crucial, confirming the university as a distinct legal entity with the right to self-regulation. Governance models varied significantly between two principal archetypes. The Bologna model, originating from the study of Roman law, was initially controlled by the nations or student guilds, organized by geographic origin. Students, often older and from wealthy backgrounds, hired the masters, fixed their salaries, determined lecture times, and regulated the price of lodgings and books. The head was the rector, an official often elected by the students themselves. In contrast, the Paris model, evolving from the Cathedral School of Notre Dame, became the supreme center for theology. Here, the masters controlled the corporation. The rector was elected by the masters of the four nations: French, Norman, Picard, and English, German, and was typically only the head of the Faculty of Arts, while the chancellor, appointed by the local bishop, held primary ecclesiastical authority over licensing. All universities were divided into faculties, a system that dictated curriculum and degree progression. The Faculty of Arts was preparatory and mandatory, comprising the 7 liberal arts, divided into the _trivium _grammar, rhetoric, and logic, dialectic, and the _quadrivium arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. The goal was to instill the foundational skills of logic and reasoning necessary for the higher faculties. Upon completing the arts course, students could proceed to one of the superior faculties: theology, the most prestigious; canon law, the study of church law; civil law, the study of Roman law, dominant at Bologna and Padua; and medicine. A key feature of university life was the _privilegium fori or benefit of the court, which exempted students and masters from the jurisdiction of the municipal courts, placing them under the authority of the university's rector or the bishop's ecclesiastical court. This legal immunity was a major point of contention with the townspeople. The church's influence was paramount, as academic degrees were inherently religious authorizations. The chancellor, an ecclesiastical official, granted the Licentia Docendi or license to teach, which was an authorization to teach ubique everywhere, confirming the universal nature of the qualification. The student body was heterogeneous in origin, but uniform in its clerical designation and often challenging circumstances. The vast majority of students were men, typically between the ages of 14 and 30, though higher degree students might be older. They were overwhelmingly designated as clerics scholars in minor orders, even if they had no intention of pursuing a religious career. This designation was essential for securing the privilegium fori They were primarily drawn from the middle ranks of society, sons of minor nobility, prosperous tradesmen, officials, and wealthy farmers. Studying was expensive, encompassing fees paid to the masters, room and board, and the high price of manuscripts. The poor scholars papiers scholars often relied on patronage, scholarships, or bursaries, and might support themselves by serving wealthier students, copying texts pacia or even begging. While students initially lived in rented rooms _hospitia the development of colleges provided an endowed, structured living environment initially intended for poor scholars, which offered subsidized board, lodging, and a more disciplined existence. Medieval instruction was dominated by scholasticism, a method relying on dialectical reasoning, the authority of canonical texts, and oral performance. Instruction was primarily oral and centered on the lectio and the disputatio . In the lectio or lecture, the master would read the required authoritative text auctoritates aloud. Since manuscripts were scarce, the lecture was often a slow, methodical dictation, supplemented by the master's commentary, known as the glossa or expositio . Memorization was an indispensable skill. The disputatio or disputation was the most vital pedagogical tool of formal public debate on a theological or philosophical quaestio question. The process involved raising a question, presenting arguments pro and contra fielding objections from the audience, and concluding with the presiding master's determinatio or authoritative resolution. These public exercises were both instructional and the primary form of examination. The pre-printing era meant that universities developed systems, such as the _Pacia system in Bologna, where approved texts were divided into sections, rented out, and copied to ensure standardization and circulation. The path to becoming a master was long, arduous, and marked by public examinations. The baccalaureate BA, achieved after 3 to 4 years in the arts faculty, required a private defense tentamen before the masters. The Master of Arts MA, requiring 6 to 7 years total study, involved a rigorous public defense of a thesis and culminated in the determinatio . Success led to the inception, where the new master formally began teaching. Pursuing a higher degree could take an additional 5 to 15 years of intense study and advanced disputations, with the capstone being the Licentia Docendi which confirmed the individual's universal right to teach. The medieval university was a highly exclusive institution. Women were institutionally excluded from receiving degrees or holding academic posts. The university was an appendage of the church structure, relying on the students' status as clerics, a position legally and canonically closed to women. The prevailing social and cultural norms restricted women's participation in public, professional, and intellectual life, deeming the urban environment of the university towns unsuitable for them. While institutional exclusion was absolute, rare historical anomalies exist, chiefly in Italy, where customs were slightly less restrictive. Figures like Betticia Gazzadini of Bologna, who allegedly lectured on law, represent isolated exceptions that did not alter the general structure of male academic power. Discipline within the university was strict, enforced by the rector, encompassing moral conduct and attendance. However, the students' privileged status led to frequent, violent clashes with the local inhabitants. The town versus gown conflict was endemic, fueled by student arrogance, non-payment of debts, brawling, and the deeply resented privilegium fori . Major riots, such as the infamous St. Scholastica Day riot at Oxford in 1355, underscored the volatile social dynamics inherent in the university's separation from municipal authority. In conclusion, the medieval university, between the 11th and 14th centuries, was a crucible of intellectual transformation, formalizing the transmission of knowledge through the rigorous methodology of scholasticism. To study was to submit to a long process of dialectical training, memorization, and mastery of authoritative texts within a highly regimented, yet legally privileged, environment. The structure, defined by the faculties and the distinct governance models of Paris and Bologna, created the enduring template for higher education. Despite the critical role of these institutions in training the bureaucratic and ecclesiastical elite, they fundamentally operated under a system of gender exclusion and social stratification, reserving the formal pursuit of the _Licentia Docendi and its associated social power exclusively for men. The life of the medieval scholar was thus a complex negotiation between the rarefied air of intellectual inquiry and the harsh realities of medieval urban life.